I think the NIR is a very important tool in getting an evaluation of the silage quality for the farmer. Quick analysis at low cost. That has become the standard. I think it's adding value by fine-tuning the operations because it's much tougher environment now than it used to be 10, 15 years ago. There's very little room for economic experimentation at the farm. So you need to be sharp in what you're doing, and I think that the NIR's equipment can aid in being sharper in determining the accurate forage quality so that you can formulate the correct type of rations. At the larger farms in the United States, the farmers take silage samples every day because it's too costly not to know the silage quality accurately by chancing of thinking that you have some type of quality that you don't maybe. You also have plant breeders, for example, that harvest maybe tens of thousands of plots each year, and they look at, for example, different grass varieties where they want to see if there are some differences in the quality of fiber, protein, and so on. They also have more or less a standard now NIRS equipment mounted on the harvesters so that they can get a very quick estimate of what's going on with our varieties. It will shorten the time for them to make the selection of the most appropriate varieties. The type of analysis that are conducted would be the fermentation profiles, so it would be the fatty acids, lactic acid, acetic acid, butyric acid. You would also take standard analysis such as sugar, protein, fibers, NDF, ADF. You would estimate the digestibility. That's very different from country to country, but you would try to make some estimation of the energy concentration of the silage. Then it's not really known to me, but what I can see from the analytical sheets I receive from laboratories, I can see that the pH values, for example, are not used by NIRS. They're determined separately. I think it would be nice to have some type of analysis where you can get a complete picture in one go. If you have some NIRS equipment where you can get the results already at the silo, it would be benefit for the farmer. The farmer would have a much closer relationship to his samples rather than waiting for maybe a week. That is fairly common when you take NIRS sample at the farm, send it into the lab, you dry the sample, and then you get the results. In some cases, some laboratories, they have some of these speed results, so you can get results back in maybe 2 or 3 days. We'd also like to get some more analysis based on hygiene, which, to best of my understanding, is not really done by NIRS yet, such as determine the concentration of Clostridia, yeast, and molds, because these are very important parameters in the silage. The volatile fatty acids, for example, they are not accurately determined because they're simply volatilized when the samples have been dried. And as far as I understand, analyzing wet forage samples or silage samples are much less accurately done by the NIRS than the dried samples, dried ground samples. So, of course, that's a challenge. I think that some of the other challenges that you may find would be the new type of analysis that the more progressive farmers use today, and that would be dynamic degradation or degradation profiles. We are interested in degradation curves of fibers or proteins because in the new feed evaluation systems, for example, in the Nordic countries, we have a feed evaluation system called NOR4, which takes into account the combination of different feeds before you can estimate a value of that feed. But if you could make better use of the NIRS equipment, you could also make better use of that dynamic system. And in these dynamic systems today, it becomes more and more important to look at the degradation profile of NDF fiber, for example. So what happens after NDF has been digested for 24 hours, 48 hours, and so on. And this is a challenge because today the reference method for these degradation profiles include the use of nylon bags that you put ground dried samples of the forage into nylon bags, and then you digest the samples over different time periods in the rumen of a cow or sheep. And the ideal thing, of course, would be to get rid of the rumen and only analyze the samples directly and try to pick up these degradation profiles without going through the degradation process over time.